Welcome to our prayer meeting. Tonight our devotional thought is traits of holy people. And we'll be looking at Romans chapter 12, verses 9 to 16 there. Paul starts out in verse 9 saying, "Let love be without hypocrisy. Abhor that which is evil. Cling to what is good." The prominent trait of holy people is their genuine love for God, for each other, and for the unsaved. The Living Bible renders the verse I just read as, "Don't just pretend that you love others, really love them." I can understand that. The other is good, but that's just down to earth. Don't just pretend that you love others, really love them. The truth is, we may not like some people. Our personalities just might clash. But in spite of that, we will have a genuine, unpretended love for them. Have you ever met someone in the church, saved person, that you just really don't like? Or, I didn't say you don't love, you just don't like. Mainly because your personalities clash. I'm essentially a quiet person, okay? And people that just yap all the time tend to get on my nerves, bother me. But, in the church, we have quiet people, and somewhere we just might have a yap person. I still love Wayne anyway. He has no one to talk to at home, so he talks to us. I understand that, and we do honestly love Wayne. But yet, you ever been to a camp meeting and been around 200, 300, 400, 500 people? There's going to be somebody that's going to rub up against you if you get too close to them. You still got to love that person, and it's an unpretended love. It's real. It's genuine. We really care about those people. The love that Paul mentions here is the agape love, which is nothing less than unconditional love. We don't put conditions on love. We say, okay, we love you in spite of anything and everything because you're one of God's children. So whatever the cost might be to ourselves, we will support and encourage those already in the faith, and we will work to reach those that need salvation and come into the faith. So Paul tells us to abhor what is evil. In other words, hate sin of any kind and all kinds as much as you hate the thought of the eternal hell to which sin leads people. Okay? First and most important, keep sin out of your life. And then work to rescue those that are under sin's bondage so that they will not have to go to hell for eternity. That's love. Paul says, cling to what is good. That word cling comes from the Greek word meaning to glue. I think we can all comprehend glue, right? So do not make any room in your life for that which is not good. Stick to all that is good and do it at all times. Okay, verses 10 and 11, he goes on to say, "Be kindly affectionate to one another with brotherly love. In honor, giving preference to one another, not lagging in diligence, fervent in spirit, serving the Lord." As Christians, we are all part of the same spiritual family. And for this reason, we should have tender feelings toward our spiritual brothers and sisters, even though we might not like them or we have a personality clash with them. So Paul's thought basically is this: treat them better than you treat yourself. Being fervent is not just in personal things, it also involves our serving the Lord. Be diligent in serving the Lord. because that blesses and encourages other of God's people. Then in verse 12 he goes on to say, rejoicing in hope, patient in tribulation, continuing steadfastly in prayer. From this we gather that we are to live every moment of our life in hope. In hope. That is the confidence that Christ will soon appear. And if not in person, it's for sure he will appear when he takes each of us through the veil of death. So, in life, in this world, you will have troubles, hopefully not of your own making. But when experiencing a trial, be patient as you have the hope that it will eventually pass and Jesus will bring you through it to the other side. And Paul tells us, don't forget to pray while the trial is going on, as that is your anchor to Christ. So don't lose your grip. Then in verse 13 he says, distributing to the needs of the saints, given to hospitality. Be hospitable. In other words, share when it is appropriate and give when it is needed. Now, we can't know every situation among God's people, but when we do become aware of a real need, let's just graciously do what we can do to help, even if it just seems to be too little. There's a true story of a man who, when he heard of a death in one of the families of the church, he didn't know what to do. He didn't have a lot of money to give. He didn't know, others are bringing food stuff. What can I do? So he went to the house and he asked for their shoes. He took them home and he polished all the shoes and brought them back. That's being hospitable. That's something just seems like maybe just too little. But when you have a loss in your family and you're going through that pain and agony and you're getting ready for a funeral and stuff like that, you don't stop to think about polishing your shoes, do you? So this might seem like too little for some people, but to that family it meant an awful lot. Then in verses 14 and 15, Paul tells us, okay, this is a good one, right? Bless those who really like you and do, huh? Is that what it says? Sorry, folks. Let's try it again. Bless those who persecute you. And he goes on and says, bless and do not curse. All right? It's easy for people to really cuss out people that do them wrong, right? But Paul tells us, instead of cussing them out, bless them. Bless them. And he says, there are going to be some people that are nice to you as well. And he says, rejoice with those who rejoice. Okay? And then weep with those who weep. The Living Bible puts this verse this way. If someone mistreats you because you're a Christian, don't curse him. Pray that God will bless him. Okay, can we do that? Okay. Has anyone ever mistreated you because you were a Christian? Okay, yeah. I remember a time when I was in the Army, I was the supply clerk in the band, and one of my jobs as the supply clerk was every Monday to have the guys in the band that lived in the barracks bring down their sheets and their pillowcases. Then I'd always get a couple of PFCs or specialists to wrap them up, and we'd take them to the supply room and exchange them. Well, the rule was they had to have them to me in the supply room by 7 o'clock. And it usually take about 30 minutes for my crew to wrap all those up and leave the band room. Well, my guys were walking out of the band room, and here comes this one guy with his sheets. And I said, I'm sorry, I can't take him. We've already loaded it up and we're on our way to the supply room. Well, he didn't like that. And that afternoon, he met me out in the parking lot and he was wanting to beat me up. I happened to be a little bit bigger than him, taller that is. But I treated him kindly and I prayed for him. Didn't pray there with him at the place, but help this man to realize what his doing is not right. He was in the wrong, and it was not something that I could undo to accommodate him that way. So the best blessing for that person who persecutes you would be to be under conviction to get saved. Okay? Our response to persecution should show unbelievers that Christ really is in our lives. Then from that we also learn to take an interest in the events that happen in people's lives. Not as a busybody or one of those people that just delights in knowing all the bad things that goes on. Have you ever run into anybody like that? They just like to know the bad news, what's going on, okay? But be genuinely happy with those that have happy things happen in their lives. Can you do that? And then show genuine concern with those that have had bad things happen in their lives. Remember, talk is cheap. Actions always speak louder than words. And then verse 16, Paul tells us, be of the same mind toward one another. Do not set your mind on high things, but associate with the humble. Okay? Again, the Living Bible puts this verse in folksy language that we all can understand. It puts it this way: work happily together. Don't try to act big. Don't try to get into the good graces of important people, but enjoy the company of ordinary folks. That is good advice. Adam Clark comments on the traits that are mentioned in these verses. He says, pray for the same good for all which you desire for yourself. That's a good rule. The attachment to high things and high men is the vice of little, shallow minds. However, it argues one important fact, that such persons are conscious that they are of no worth and of no consequence to themselves. That is so true. The King James renders the last phrase, condescend to men of low estate. In modern English, that sounds like we're supposed to think of ourselves as being better than others, right? And we are doing them a favor by looking down on them. That's far from the truth. I think the Living Bible's a little more easy to understand on that. So, on this point, Clark gives us some very sound advice. He writes, be a companion of the humble and pass through life with as little noise and show as possible. Let the poor, godly man be your chief companion, and learn from his humility and piety to be humble and godly. Good advice. So, depending on how you count them, 14 traits are mentioned in this passage. How many of these traits do you see in your life? Answer the question for yourself. Are you a holy person based on what the Apostle Paul wrote here? Amen.